guys, welcome to my channel. My name is ReadingBear and I hope you are ready for some more stories. And today, we'll take a look at some new IDoWorkHereLady content. If you enjoyed my content, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel and post some bear emojis in the comment. And now, let's dive right into the stories.
The first story is titled Working as an Intern, Got Mistaken for Client, and Treated Like a Child. This is kind of a short story, but I think it's worth sharing, and it always cracks me up. My last semester of college, I did an internship as a part of my special education degree. The organization I was working for was what's called a sheltered workshop, essentially a place for companies to send product to be processed by people with intellectual and developmental disabilities, autism, Down syndrome, etc., at a reduced wage. I actually spent the entire semester researching sheltered workshops and the practice of subminimum wage, so it felt like undercover journalism most of the time. The employees or clients are monitored and supported by a large staff of barely trained, non-disabled employees. I have chronic pain and fatigue, which means that I need to use mobility aids to get around. I alternated between a rolling walker and a manual wheelchair for most of my time there. I was the only non-client with a disability. I also wore a lanyard with my badge on it, which had my name and intern, university name, in big letters. Now, sometimes my lanyard would get turned around so the front couldn't be seen. On many occasions, I would be doing work on my computer or a notebook while sitting in a common area, and one of the non-disabled employees would strike up a conversation either with me or with a group including me. Without fail, they would always address me with the same tone and manner they address the clients, while speaking perfectly normally to everyone else around. My personal favorite way of handling that was when they would pull the sugar sweet. And who are you? Oh, hi. I'm Name, the intern from university. So nice to meet you. I'm really learning a lot from this experience. The look on their face as it dawns on them that I'm actually an articulate, college-educated person still makes me laugh to this day. It's like you could see the gears turn and the foot get shoved in their mouth. Lesson to be learned. Don't treat disabled people like children. And never assume someone using a wheelchair is by default also intellectually disabled. The next story is titled Apparently I Can't Be a Server If I Have Blue Hair and Piercings. This happened a couple of years ago. I was working at my parents' alpine hut, where it is indeed rather unusual to run into a metalhead girl with blue hair and piercings. I just had one on my face back then though. Yet, almost no one makes a fuss about that. Except Karen. I was bartending when she came in, looked at me and turned around to where my dad was checking some guests in, walked over to him, and asked him why that filthy unemployed punker girl would be allowed back there. He answered, "That girl is my daughter, she is doing her job perfectly fine, and if you have such a big problem with her looks, you are free to leave." Karen went pale and left. We didn't see her again. The next story is titled I'm Not a Student. I'm actually a teach nope off to detention with you. Shout out to the people who were accused of being a student when they had already graduated. I've recently started out as a teacher. I was 27 when I had my first teaching job, did some other stuff before, and of course, as the newbie, not everyone working at that school knew me at the time. I look a bit younger than my age and I usually wear a pair of jeans and a nice blouse shirt. I was working there for a bit over a month when I was walking through the hallways of the school during class hours, picking up some paperwork and heading to the teacher's room as I had a free period. An older man, I guess in his 40s, stopped me, looking kinda angry. "Unknown man, excuse me young lady, where do you think you're going? Why aren't you in class?" Me? Boom, I'm not actually a student but I'm a unknown man. Like hell you are, I've seen you walking around with the older kids. Go to your class immediately. Me sir, I'm really not a student, but I'm actually a teacher. I'm new here, so you probably haven't seen me but unknown man. Stop your lying. Go report to the office immediately. I will make sure your parents hear of this. And don't think I won't be looking for you in detention tomorrow. Me? Goes to the office as I needed to go there anyway to ask something and because this guy was way taller than me and looking really angry. My colleagues in the office, what happened to you? Me? I got sent here because I was outside during class hours. Also, could you call my parents because a man expects me in detention tomorrow? My colleagues basically died of laughter right there, and because there's usually more than one teacher keeping an eye out during detention, and thus I couldn't tell them who of the two males that were actually scheduled for detention the next day had given me detention, They actually sent me to detention the next day. You'll see in a bit why. I took some grading work with me. The unknown man who sent me to detention was looking smug as crap when he saw me sitting in detention. After a few minutes, one of my colleagues from the office came in and, in the most theatrical voice you can imagine, introduced me as their new colleague, and wasn't I a dear for coming into detention while busy grading papers in order to help them out with unruly students just roaming the hallways during class hours. You should have seen the guy's face, priceless. For some reason he never sat at my table during lunch. The next story is titled I Work Here, I'm Not 10 and I Can Kick You Out. Some short backstory. So this happened back when I was in high school, in the 11th grade, and I was about 16 or 17 at the time. I'd always worked with the drama productions, and the only adult working there would be the drama teacher himself, Mr. B, cool dude. He was actually my teacher at the time as well, so I was getting extra credit for each night I worked. As for what I did, I basically did everything except work tech and actually perform. So that means I cleaned before and after shows, sold tickets and concessions, helped with costumes and hair, sometimes helped with setting scenes, but my main job was being an usher. I manned the door, making sure that only people with tickets, except for a few exceptions like staff, got in and no one sneaked in, as well as helping people find seats if they need help. Sometimes I'm asked to go grab some extra chairs, though we have limited space for that, so I can only really add about 10 extra seats. Now, onto the actual story. There rarely was ever any real issues that happened when I worked for the drama productions. Sometimes people would be confused as to where the bathroom was or about tickets, but nothing major. However, this night was a bit of a problem. At my school, you could order the tickets online, but when you do so, you'll get this document, proof of purchase basically, that you need to print out and take to the front, where they will trade that for an actual physical ticket. Real simple, instructions on the paper in bold too. Can't miss it. Though sometimes I have to tell people, again, not an issue. I try to explain this to this couple, terrible at guessing ages, but they look to be at least in their 30s to 40s, and their young kid, I don't know man, like 10, 12. But they just kept arguing with me about how we spent so much money on these tickets. Let us in now. Dude, the tickets are pretty cheap, like $5 per adult. I just kept telling them to go around to the front, pointing to it, like 5 feet away with no line at the moment, and trade that paper in for the tickets. They then started to yell about how we are robbing them of money and how they don't want to pay for more tickets. Where are they getting this from? One of the techs calls out that it's 30 minutes till curtains, so I got to hurry this up, as they are also blocking other people from getting in. And the whole time they were yelling about how they aren't going to take orders from a 10-year-old and that they want someone who really works here to help them. They don't believe me when I say that I do work here, because only adults get hired to do work. Now, besides that latter statement being incredibly stupid, I have to be fair on the first part. I do look incredibly young. I'm only 4'10" and my face can be described as a circle, but I don't think that I look that young. The entire time this is happening, their kid keeps trying to get past me to save some seats. Yeah, no, I just keep blocking the kid's way, making for a better wall than a door after all. I've had enough. I'm annoyed it's getting close for the show to start, and I still got people waiting to be let in. So I just tell them to leave. I don't ask, I tell them to leave. And oh boy, the curses go flying after that. I can't kick them out stealing your money. They're gonna get me fired for this, and blah blah blah. I'm not 10, I do in fact work here. You can't get me fired and I can and will kick you out. So leave now before I make you. The guy actually shoves me out of his way and against one of the walls. And I figured at this point that since he's gotten physical with me first, it's now fair game for me. I'm much smaller than this guy, so I decide to just use my full weight, only about 100 pounds, and ram him out of the doorway and onto his ass on the ground outside. My shoulders certainly hurt after that, and the woman is now screaming at me for assaulting her husband, and the kid is also kicking and punching me, but like how little kids do it. Still hurts, but eh. I simply just grab both of their sleeves and start yanking them away from the doorway and towards the gate of the school and tell the other people waiting that I'll be with them in a moment. The kid at some point bit me, and the woman dug her nails into my arm and scratched it. Both hurt a lot. Now, at my school, we have on-campus police, and while they are gone after school hours, they do come back during after-school events, like our plays. One of them see me and jogs over. She makes me let go of the two, and I do, and start asking what happened. Their story is that I refused to let them, and despite them paying for tickets, I cursed them out, attacked the husband without reason, and dragged them away from the show. When I tried to tell my story, they kept yelling over me until the cop told them to shut up. After I give my side, Mr. B jogs over. A tech actually ran and got him, and he asked what was going on. They told him that a child, me, had ditched her parents and was pretending to be a worker and attacked, and he had to explain that I did, in fact, work there. There's a lot of arguing as both sides are insistent that the other is lying, until the cop has Mr. B stay and keep an eye on all of us, while she goes and asks around what really happened, as there was still a line of people by the door to the drama room/theater. I did get in trouble with both the on-campus police and my teacher, but because I have no past records of getting in trouble, and other adults and the techs vouching for me that the man attacked me first, I only got a scolding as I could have handled the situation much better, and yeah, I could and should have. Which is fair, I'll take it. The couple and kid got banned from the school for the rest of the year, though they kept yelling about how I attacked them first and how we're stealing their money, or a scam and a bunch of other stuff that I can't remember. They did threaten to sue, but I was a minor at the time, so I don't think that they could do it, or it would be financially worth it. I could be wrong about that, but since I'm 21 now and have yet to get a call about being sued, I think I'm fine. Thankfully, I was able to do my usher job fast enough that we started the show only about 5 minutes late. But yeah, Mr. B told me that while he was glad that I did my job, that I should probably just get him or have someone to get him the next time this happened. Thing is, before this happened, Mr. B had told me to not disturb him while he was backstage working, as it was very important on whatever he was doing at the time, and to only get him if there was a fire, and that everything else I was allowed to handle myself, except tech. Leave that to the techs. The next story is titled Yes, the guy in a military uniform does work here. So when I was in the USAF, we could have morale shirts. Every Friday, you could wear a special shirt that was designed by whatever unit you were in. When this came around, each unit claimed what color they wanted and went about designing their shirts. My first unit was navy blue, second unit was OD green, third was black. I wasn't proud to be in my last unit, so I never bothered finding out. This happened in my third unit, where the shirts were black. So I was newer to the base, only been there about 7 months. We only ordered our shirts every 3 months, and they were made by Ranger Up, so they took a while to get overseas to Europe. While waiting, you could wear a plain black shirt or a military black shirt from various sources from your time in. I always wore my police week shirt, seeing as I was a cop. Security forces, kinda cop, did mostly security until this base though. So one morning about 2 a.m. a woman, obviously a dependent judging by her talons of nails and Karen haircut, with the back dyed pink, stomps into B-Doc, basically the dispatch desk, demanding to talk to someone about the high school kids having a party down the street off base, keeping her up. This is England. Even being American, you can drink at 18, and it was graduation weekend. So they send me out to calm her down and kindly tell her to duck off. Unless you were filling out paperwork or in a holding cell, you couldn't enter the actual B-Doc without being escorted, and we weren't bringing her back for some BS statement at 2 a.m. Hell, she interrupted my game of Pub Mobile. Idiot. So cue 22-year-old me walk out with no uniform jacket on, so you just saw me in uniform with a black t-shirt on and a gun strapped to my hip. Granted, this wasn't our official unit shirt, but it was actually more obvious to anyone that I'm a cop because instead of our unit symbol on the chest, it was our badge. So to anyone remotely familiar to anything military, which you expect independent to be, I'm obviously a cop, just not in the typical uniform, looking a bit more casual than you'd see me outside in. She starts berating me and my manager for sending an intern out. She saw no rank on my sleeves, but I was an E4 with now 3 years and change under my belt. I knew my crap, and not a real cop, to deal with these underage drinkers. So after calmly telling her it was out of our jurisdiction, and she needed to call the local constables, she starts throwing a hissy fit saying that's not good enough, and she's going to call her husband down, who's an E5. Whoa, scary. I told her to go ahead, and she's not very happy about some nobody calling her bluff, so she proceeds to slap me. I think this is the moment she realized that at home. I do work here, lady, because she didn't realize I kept a set of handcuffs on the small of my back as well as on my gear for situations I might need a third set. Kinda an emergency set, if you will. Well, she got a new set of silver bracelets that night. She did get to come back into B-Doc, and we did call her husband. I agreed to the husband to not ruin his career over a wimpy slap, and she was released. I honestly didn't feel like doing the paperwork for it, and it barely left a mark. And I ended up getting a few more chicken dinners that morning. The next story is titled Got the Cops Called on Me. So here are my characters. Mimi, 28F Bill, next door neighbor. 70 ADOM, Carol, crazy dingbat across the street. ADOF, edit, DF, dear fiance Bill, brother-in-law or my fiance's brother. So I've been in my home for about 5 years now. Now my DF and I are technically renters, but DF brother owns our home. He pretty much said we can do whatever we want as long as it doesn't destroy the property value. We have been exclusively in charge of maintenance for 5 years, both interior and exterior. We've always had an issue with Carol, from her trying to get a petition to get my dog removed from the neighborhood to her badmouthing us to neighbors because our property looks trashy. I will admit, we have a large dog and he can get aggressive when you encroach on his territory. But what German Shepherd isn't defensive of his mama? As for our property looking trashy, we had a dead tree we were waiting for the city to remove, and they did. Why would I pay $800 to remove a tree around power lines when the city does it for free since it was within 3 feet of the curb? Anyways, that was just some insight as to why Carol is Carol. So Bill is a nice guy. Waves and chit-chats, but nothing serious. Over the summer, we had a poison ivy outbreak in our yard. Since Bill's driveway is close to the grove with the ivy, I gave him a heads up and told him we were removing it. He informed us he's incredibly allergic to poison ivy, and he's actually been hospitalized. It's gotten so bad. Glad I let him know. We dug up what we could and sprayed a ton of killer on the ivy. But being poison ivy, it came back because some of the root was under a tree root and we couldn't get it all up. No biggie. We kept digging it up as best we could. My BAL knows about this and said fine. We also had some bushes out front we want removed. Again, BAL said as long as it doesn't end up being a complete mess, go ahead. So we dig up our bushes. They're currently stumps in our front yard, with a pile of actual bush broken down and prepared to go out on the next leaf pickup. Organized piles. We also did a little more poison ivy cleanup. I also noticed on the far side of Bill's yard, one of his trees has a poison ivy vine. I informed him of this and told him if he wants, I will do what I can to cut it down and dig it up. He said great because he doesn't want to deal with it. So I've got my bag with the ivy trimmings. I head over to Bill's. I clip and rip up the ivy as best I could. Then the cops show up to Carol's. I'm wondering if it was a call for her sick husband, who's needed EMS a few times this summer. Then they come over to me and ask what I'm doing. Apparently they got a call I was illegally destroying property. I was honestly dumbfounded. I told them that no, I don't technically live here. I was at Bill's house, but I had the homeowner's permission. They were told I was cutting trees. Definitely not. It was clear I wasn't cutting trees. His tree trunk is about 12-18 inches, with little pruning shears. Told the cops I'm cutting and killing his poison ivy because he's allergic to it. I sarcastically offered them to peek in the bag, and they said no. Such a shame, who wouldn't want to see a bag of poison ivy? Then they had to ask me about my house. I guess when Carol called, she said I was going around digging up someone's grove. It's true, I was digging up part of the grove at my house that had poison ivy in it. I was also reported for destroying trees. Again, they were bushes that I had the okay to cut. Like seriously, you crazy bat? We're mid-pandemic, and you're gonna call the cops because I trashed my own yard by cutting bushes out and cut my neighbor's poison ivy. If she wasn't 80 plus, I would probably take petty revenge, seeing as that's worked in the past. I really thought we were over this because she's been quiet for a few years. She's also called the cops on us for breaking our city's leash law because our dog was tied in our front yard. We were playing with the dog and raking leaves, but he was on a runner chain, not a leash, so she called. This happened more during our first 2-3 years at the house. Want to know the best part? The BAL who owns the house is a city cop. She's tried to go to him so many times, and he tells her to mind her business. But they had a party. Okay, no underage drinking, everyone gone before 11. But they have 3 cars. Okay, and they're all registered, insured, and kept up. Once she didn't get a response from the homeowner, she started calling the actual police. She was given a warning 2 years ago about her harassment and misuse of emergency services, which stopped her. If you enjoyed the video, please subscribe to the channel and post some bear emojis in the comments.